What's up, guys? So in today's video, we're going to go back to some basics and look at some closed hi-hat patterns. These are going to be 5 different patterns that I use in my music all the time, and after this video, you're going to be able to implement them in your tracks. So stay tuned if you want to check this out. What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out this video. You're watching Claritone Audio, and for those of you that are new here, my name is Killian. I'm also known as Nalik for my Psytrance project with Grasshopper Records. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some closed hi-hat patterns that can really give different feels to your music, even though they sit low in the mix. They definitely have a different vibe to them, and they can almost change the perceived speed of your track. Before we jump right into Cubase, just got a bit of housekeeping to do, of course. Check out the links in the description. I just want to say thanks to everybody that's supporting me on Patreon. If you want access to any of the samples or any of the stuff that I create on the video, private Discord server, all kinds of stuff, just check out the Patreon links. There's also a link to my Psytrance group on Facebook, which is just a great resource for anybody that's trying to learn about Psytrance production. So you guys should join that group. And without further ado, we'll jump right into Cubase, where we have a kick bass loop and a close hi-hat sample. And we're just going to make the 5 different patterns. They repeat pretty much over a bar or two. And we'll listen to how they all sound. And you can implement them in your music, based off the ones that you like and what they do for your tracks. So let's hop right into Cubase and check that out now. Alright, so here we are in Cubase, and we can see we've got a kick and bass going with 2 different extra tracks that we have 2 different closed hi-hat samples on. So first, let's take a listen to this kick and bass. We've got Bassism on the kick, and we're using Vital for the bass. And this is just a simple gallop kick bass pattern, 3 notes. I've just got some EQ on the kick. And then Vital, we've got a little bit more processing. We're using some Saturn. I've used this 2BM preset, but I've started adding a lot of bands to just kind of adjust things. Of course, we've got a little bit of EQ. I'm actually using this multi-band compressor to give me some more sub. So if you guys want me to go over the processing of this kick and bass channel, let me know in the comments down below. It actually would really help with the algorithm as well. Give this video a thumbs up if you're learning stuff on my channel or in this video and you appreciate the content. But I know I've been kind of avoiding doing a kick and bass tutorial or a bass tutorial specifically, but I know there's just thousands of kick bass videos, so if I do it, I'm going to do a really long video. We'll go over the different types of kick basses, square basses, different patterns, and I'll do something really in depth. But I can also make a video on just this kick and bass processing if you guys are using Vital and you want to see how I processed the kick or the bass. Anyways, we'll get on to the video. You can see that we've got those 2 closed hi-hats on tracks down at the bottom here in blue. And what they are is they're just 16th notes. I've cut them down to the grid size, and I've copied it 4 times over. So in some of these patterns, I'm going to use 2 different hi-hats, which is why I have the second one on this channel up top. But in the first pattern, what we're going to use is, consistent 16th notes on the hi-hat, and we're going to change the velocity. And the name of this pattern, I'm going to call it the follower, because what the velocity does is pretty much follow the kick and bass, and it's going to give it another kind of, circulating gallop feel. So let's take a look at this. We'll actually start off with 4 copies, and this pattern will basically repeat every 4 closed hi-hat samples, so we're going to highlight them all, come up to the top here at the velocity, the volume of each clip, I should say, and we're going to start by lowering the first one. The second one's going to be a little bit higher, the third one will be full velocity, and then the last one will be a little bit under full velocity. So they all have a different velocity, and you'll see how it gives this nice feel. So we'll go -6, unselect that one, bring the second one to like -4. This third sample is going to be full volume, and then this last one will be -2. So if I highlight them all, you can see how it has this kind of staircase that goes all the way up within 3 and then back down a little bit, but it's not as low as the second one either. So if we copy this over 4 times and glue them all together, we'll have a little pattern to listen to. So I call this one the follower. Not sure why it's doing that extra loud kick on the first one. Strange. Cool. So that about wraps up pattern number 1. Let's go over to pattern number 2. Again, we're going to start with 4 copies of 16th note hi-hats. And this one, we're actually going to do something a little bit different. We're going to lower them all, and then we're going to, actually not all of them, but we'll bring up the other ones after. So now we're going to bring up the second one to about -2. And this one to, the third one to full volume. So we can see this gives us a different kind of, middle gallop, kind of those 2-note gallops. So let's see what this feel, what feel it gives with this pattern. See how this one's completely different from the other one? And we can even, lower these a little bit more if we wanted to exaggerate the feeling. So let's say we start again with 4. We can lower these even more. So that would be pattern number 2. Let's go over to pattern number 3. So pattern number 3 is really, really simple. Let's just lower all of these a little more. This one basically just has the third one at full volume, and the other one's all lower, but the first one we're going to put a little bit higher than the other 2. So let's see what shape this gives. So this is kind of just a nice varied feel, almost like humanized. So this one we'll just call it like heavy-handed, like as if it was a real drummer playing. Often they have one hand that's a bit heavier. So let's call this pattern heavy-handed. With the kick and bass. Okay, we're back. So basically what I just did was, I don't know if you guys could hear that when it was looping back around. For some reason the kick was louder, so just to get around that right away, I just bounced my kick out here. So with all of the processing on it and everything, that's the kick rendered out. So now we can check out these patterns without that happening. So you hear how these are all giving really a different feel. These last 2 patterns, what we're going to do is we're going to bring over this second hi-hat sample. We're going to use it to add some variation in the pattern. And we'll actually make the pattern using 8 16th notes. So 8 different copies of, each sample. So what I'm going to do is similar to the first pattern, the follower, but I'm going to add in a second hi-hat on some accent points. So this one isn't really a set pattern. What I usually do is I'll start with one of the other patterns, and then I'll add some accent points on top using a second hi-hat sample, which gives it, you know, obviously a different feel. You can give it kind of a really nice groove depending on how you place your samples. And sometimes in the second sample that I use, I'll even go over to 30-second notes so that you can get some like rolls over at the end. So maybe if I go back to how we had it before, but I add a 30-second note at the end, this is what we get here. And then of course you can add a little bit of changes here, like maybe we'll go like this. And now for the last pattern, what we're going to do is, of course, just you know, a variation of the two, kind of like the heavy-handed pattern, but we're going to alternate between two and maybe add some couple extra little ones in there to spice it up every now and then. So what I did there is I just alternate the drum samples, and I just muted the other clips here using the mute tool. Now we're still in 30-second notes, and we have this really short hi-hat here that I have. Of course, we have extra length. I can re-pull it out and make it longer again. But let's keep it in 30-second in case we want to do the same thing we did in the last one. Let's listen to what we have here. Which, yes, we should have them at the same length. It's a little bit too short compared to the first sample. So we'll just add some kind of like fills in at the end. And, you know, this pattern wasn't really planned, the last one. I just wanted to make 5. So here's a 5th pattern that you guys can use. You know, alternate between the two, but then add in some little fills. Kind of think about how a drummer would actually play. I've never played drums, but I mean, if you watch a drummer and think about how a drummer would play, think about the alternating hands and how you can really get different feels based on the velocities that you play one after the other. So now that I made all the patterns, what we'll do is we'll listen to each one of those patterns over again twice, and then I'll let them all play once over after each other so you can kind of hear what they sound like one after the other. So here's pattern number 1. Here's pattern number 2. Pattern number 3. This is the 4th pattern where we started to mix 2 different samples. And here's the last one where we alternate the 2 different samples and add kind of a little spice at the end, a little fill, where you double up some of the hi-hats at the end. Now let's listen to each one after another. And of course, how often you have these double ups could be, once every 4 bars, 8 bars, you decide. But of course, I was just making 2 little 2-bar patterns here, so you can always add some nice changes and variations to get a less robotic and continuous feel in your drums all the time. So I hope this video was useful to you guys. If you liked the video, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.